I thought I'd already done this, but evidently I had not. And it came up on a live with Cottage Core or something. I can't remember. Anyway, I'll tag her because it was a great live, and reads a lot of different stuff. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. I mentioned that I wanted to live in a pet vet community, and they asked what that was, and I realized I should have a video on it, but evidently I didn't. So I said if I didn't, I would make one, and I am redeeming my promise. So what I picture is you come in the front, and on the right there's a veterinarian's office, and then lab and radiology, and then a human doctor office, and then a dentist, and then on the other side of the driveway there's a little shop and an area where you can meet pets, and the therapist and psychiatrist office, because all of these people are either retiring people or new people, and they get to live in a tiny house on the property for free as long as they treat the people who live on the property for free. But they get the office space for free, and they can treat other people in the community, not just the people who live on the. So I figure it's a good deal. You go down, and then there's a big house on the right, and this big house has a communal kitchen, a library, a media room, a computer room, a craft room, a laundry room, and some suites for people who don't want to live in a tiny house that all have a catio of some type. Then you come down a little, and on the left there are tiny houses, and on the right you have the gardens, and the kitchen garden and flower garden and the vegetable garden and the recreation building, which has a wood workshop. The metal workshop's further down, and it also has a covered screened-in basketball court that has an area set off that has the grills and shit, so we can have outdoor parties. I've kind of thought about this a lot. Further down, you've got the metal shop, and then there's the barn where people who live on the property who hire out to take down houses and pull everything that can possibly be used again out, so that other people can come and donate to the pet vet community and get the materials for less expensive than they would buying new. Oh, and the entire place is handicapped accessible, because you may not need it, but you might have a friend who wants to visit you who does. Anyone can break their leg. Seriously, do you really want to go around on crutches for 6 weeks with? No, everything handicapped accessible. Now, there's also woods surrounding it, and paths, forest paths that you can walk that are wheel your wheelchair, because they're all handicapped accessible. On the other side of this is a handicapped accessible campground. And you come in, and there's also community gardens, flowers and herbs and vegetables, and a big, huge barn, which is open, and you have trestle tables you can pull out so that you can configure it however you want, and it has a commercial-grade kitchen. And there are a couple of tiny houses in front, so people who need electricity to live can stay in those when you're hiring the place for a family reunion or wedding or what have you. And then there's also campsites that are handicapped accessible, which have electricity run to them, not all of them, but most of them, and a non-denominational chapel. And my thing is that you could go to, because most cities have a ecumenical council of all the ministers in the area, and you can say to them, hey, we'll give you each an 8x10 space, and you can put whatever you want there. And then you leave the center free, and then if somebody in particular is using the chapel, they can move theirs to the middle. Oh, and I want a labyrinth and a hedge maze. All handicapped accessible. The big key is all of this is handicapped accessible. The question is, how do you do this? Do you make it a nonprofit? Do you make a for-profit? Because I could see it being both. You could do it both ways. And the thing about it is, if you set it up so that the people living in the tiny houses own, or renting to own, or buying the tiny houses, if you have more than one pet vet community, you can move your tiny house to another community easily because it's like, oh, hey, yeah, see, I'm already a member of. But the big key, and the reason it's called Pet Vet Community, is because one of the things you have to promise to do if you live there is either care for an animal, and that can be an emotional support animal, that could be, a guide dog, that could be a service dog, or what have you, or you foster. Because there are so many animals around the world who need fostering. We need to up our TNR, trap, neuter, release. And we need fosterers. And I think this is a great way to do it because fostering an animal helps you. Especially, I have CPTSD. A lot of the vets I know also have either PTSD, but most of them have CPTSD. Gee, more than one trauma while in the military? Shock, surprise. But if they've got an animal to care for, it's like, hey, I have to get out of bed. I have to feed the cat. I have to get out of bed. I have to change the litter. I have to get out of bed. I have to let the dog into the backyard. Plus, it's reasonable for someone to check on you, at least by FaceTime or something every day to say, hey, how's the cat doing? Hey, how's the lizard doing? How's that iguana that was rescued from that hoarder house the other day, or what have you? Because there are all kinds of animals that need rescuing. There are all kinds of people who love different kinds of animals, and you could rescue people and animals at the same time. It just makes sense to me. Anyway, that's my idea. I just don't have the spoons to get it off the ground. So, boom, I'm releasing it into the universe.